Prince Zethkar stood tall in the great hall of the Galactic Council. His forearms moved as he spoke, showing his pride. The other alien leaders sat in their chairs, listening to his story about the recent battle. The prince's blue skin shined under the bright lights, and his golden armor made him look even more important. "Fellow council members," he began with a strong voice, "the Valthran Empire has won another great victory. We have defeated a new species that dared to enter our space without permission." The other aliens in the room looked interested. New species were always a topic that caught their attention. Some leaned forward in their seats to hear better. "Tell us about this new species," said Ambassador Kixthala from the Korthani Federation. Her snake-like body coiled in her chair as she spoke. "What did you call them?" "Humans." Prince Zethkar said the word like it tasted bad. "Strange creatures that walk on only 2 legs. They have no scales, no extra arms, and their skin is soft like a newborn's. Very weak-looking." He activated a hologram in the center of the room. The image showed a small building complex on a rocky planet. The buildings looked simple and basic compared to the great cities the council members knew. "We found their base 3 weeks ago," the prince continued. "Our scouts reported a military outpost in the Kepler 442 system. The humans had built their base there without asking for permission. This was an act of war against the Empire." The hologram changed to show battle footage. Valthran soldiers in their advanced armor moved toward the human buildings. Explosions lit up the screen as plasma weapons fired. "How many defenders did they have?" asked Council Leader Torthax, a giant creature with 6 eyes. "Only 47, Prince Zethkar answered with a laugh. "Can you believe it? 47 humans thought they could stand against the might of 800 Valthran warriors." Some of the council members made sounds of surprise. 47 against 800 seemed like an impossible fight. "The battle lasted 3 hours, the prince went on. "The humans fought harder than we expected for such a weak species. They used old-style weapons that shoot metal bullets instead of energy beams. Their shields were basic and broke easily under our plasma fire." The hologram showed more battle scenes. Human figures could be seen running between buildings, shooting at the attacking Valthrans. Even though the image quality was not perfect, it was clear the humans were much smaller than their enemies. "They had strange tactics," Prince Zethkar admitted. "The humans would not stay in one place. They kept moving and hiding. Every time we thought we had them trapped, they would appear somewhere else and attack our flanks." Admiral Corvin of the Stellar Alliance spoke up. "What kind of weapons did they use?" "Primitive kinetic weapons mostly," the prince answered. "Guns that fire solid projectiles. Some energy weapons too, but nothing as advanced as ours. They also used explosives and something they called grenades, small bombs they could throw by hand." The battle footage continued to play. It showed Valthran soldiers falling as human weapons hit them. For a fight that should have been easy, there seemed to be a lot of Valthran casualties. "The humans were clever," Prince Zethkar said, though he did not sound happy about it. "They had prepared their base well. Underground tunnels connected their buildings. They could move from place to place without us seeing them. Some of our warriors got lost in their tunnel system." "How many of your soldiers did you lose?" Ambassador Kixthala asked quietly. The prince paused for a moment. 237, he finally said. "It was higher than expected, but that is the cost of fighting on an unknown world." Whispers went around the room. Losing over 200 soldiers to defeat 47 defenders was not normal. Even for a defended position, those numbers seemed strange. "The humans fought until the very end," the prince continued. "Even when they were clearly beaten, they did not surrender. We had to kill almost all of them. Only 3 survived, and they were badly wounded." "Did you question the survivors?" Council Leader Torthax asked. "We tried, Prince Zethkar replied. But they spoke in their own language, and our translators had trouble understanding them. They seemed to be asking about something called backup, and kept mentioning numbers and coordinates. The prince waved one of his hands as if the information was not important. It does not matter now. The threat is ended. I am here today to request formal annexation rights to the human territory. Any other humans in that area of space will surrender once they learn what happened to their forward base. Ambassador Kiksthala looked thoughtful. Prince Zethkar, you said this was a military outpost. Did you confirm this before attacking? Of course, the prince answered quickly. It had defensive walls, armed soldiers, and weapons. What else could it be? But did you try to communicate with them first? The ambassador pressed. Prince Zethkar's skin turned a darker shade of blue, which meant he was getting angry. They were in our space without permission. Communication was not necessary. The Empire's laws are clear about unauthorized military installations. The hologram changed again to show the destroyed human base after the battle. Smoke rose from the ruined buildings. Bodies could be seen scattered around the area. The Valthran flag now flew from a tall pole in the center of the complex. The humans' technology was interesting, the prince admitted. Not as advanced as ours, but they had some clever ideas. Their armor was lighter than ours, but still provided good protection. Their communications equipment was more advanced than we expected from such a primitive species. He gestured to his military advisor, who stepped forward. General Krathver led the ground assault. He can give you more details about the human fighting style. General Krathver was an older Valthran with many battle scars on his armor. The humans were unusual fighters, he said in a rough voice. They did not fight like most species we have faced. Instead of forming battle lines, they used what they called guerrilla tactics. They would attack, then disappear, then attack again from a different direction. Were they trained soldiers? Asked Admiral Corvin. They fought like trained soldiers, the general replied. But something was strange. They seemed to care more about protecting their equipment and data than protecting themselves. Several times, humans risked their lives to destroy computers and files before we could capture them. Prince Zethkar nodded. They were probably destroying military secrets. It shows they knew they could not win. The council meeting continued for another hour. The prince answered more questions about the battle and the human technology they had captured. Most council members seemed satisfied with his report. The humans appeared to be just another minor species that had been dealt with appropriately. As the meeting ended, Prince Zethkar felt proud of his victory. He had proven himself as a military leader and gained new territory for the Empire. The humans were gone, and space was safer for the superior Valthran civilization. He had no idea that in 3 days, everything would change. 3 days after Prince Zethkar spoke to the Galactic Council, something happened that changed everything. Deep in space, on a secret listening post, Korthani intelligence officers were doing their normal work. They watched radio signals from across the galaxy, looking for anything unusual or dangerous. Agent Silthara was working the night shift when her equipment picked up something strange. A burst of energy came from empty space, lasting only a few seconds. Most people would have missed it, but the Korthani had very sensitive equipment. They had been watching space communications for thousands of years. Command, I have an unknown signal, Silthara reported to her supervisor. High-energy quantum burst from Sector 7G. The signal is encrypted. Her supervisor, Agent Vexton, slithered over to look at her screen. His snake-like body moved smoothly across the floor as he approached her workstation. Can you decode it? Working on it, Silthara replied, her fingers moving quickly over her controls. The encryption is unlike anything in our database. It uses mathematical principles I have never seen before. For the next 6 hours, The best Courtney codebreakers worked on the signal. They used every technique they knew, every computer program they had. Slowly, pieces of the message began to make sense. The first words they decoded made them stop breathing. Terran Defense Command. Recon Unit Delta 7. Status update required. Agent Vex then read the partial message 3 times before speaking. Get Ambassador Kixthala on the communication line immediately, he ordered. Priority Alpha. Within minutes, the ambassador was connected to the listening post. Her image appeared on the main screen, showing her concern. What is so urgent? Agent Vex them? We intercepted a human transmission, he said without delay. The message mentions something called Recon Unit Delta 7 and asks for a status update. The ambassador's eyes widened. Show me what you have decoded. More text appeared on the screen as the codebreakers continued their work. TDC to Recon Unit Delta 7. Status update required. No contact for 72 hours. If compromised, initiate emergency protocols. Primary fleet elements standing by for Shepard protocol activation. The room became very quiet. Everyone understood what this meant, but no one wanted to say it out loud. Keep working on the decryption, Ambassador Kixthala ordered. I need to know everything this message contains, and find out where it came from. For the next 12 hours, the Courtney worked without rest. More pieces of the message came together, and each new line made the situation worse. Delta 7 team members: Dr. Sarah Martinez, xenogeologist; Dr. Chen Wei, atmospheric specialist; Dr. James Thompson, cultural anthropologist. Security detail: Sergeant Mike Rodriguez and 11 others. Mission: peaceful first contact survey and scientific research. Agent Silthara looked up from her screen with horror in her eyes. Sir, according to this message, the humans that Prince Zethkar fought were not soldiers. They were scientists. Ambassador Kixthala closed her eyes and took a deep breath. What else does the message say? There's more, Silthara continued reading. Mission parameters: establish temporary research base. Conduct geological surveys. Analyze local ecosystem. Prepare first contact protocols for peaceful species interaction. The full picture was becoming clear, and it was terrifying. Prince Zethkar had not attacked a military outpost. He had attacked a group of scientists who were trying to make peaceful contact with alien species. The 47 humans who died were researchers, not soldiers. There's something else, Agent Vex then said, looking at another screen. Our deep space sensors are detecting gravitational anomalies in the human territory. Something big is moving through space toward the area where the battle happened. Ambassador Kixthala immediately tried to contact Prince Zethkar. She sent urgent messages to the Vulfran Empire, warning them about what they had discovered. But the prince was celebrating his victory and did not want to hear warnings from other species. When she finally reached him, Prince Zethkar laughed at her concerns. Even if the humans were scientists instead of soldiers, what difference does it make? He said with arrogance. They were in our space without permission. They paid the price for their mistake. Prince Zethkar, you do not understand, the ambassador tried to explain. These were peaceful researchers. They were not a threat to anyone. And now something is coming from human space. Something very large. Let them come, the prince replied with confidence. We proved that humans are weak. Whatever force they send, we will destroy it just like we destroyed their base. The communication ended, leaving Ambassador Kixthala feeling helpless. She had tried to warn him, but his pride would not let him listen. Meanwhile, the Courtney listening posts continued to track the movement in space. The gravitational signatures were huge, much larger than any known ship class. Whatever was coming from human territory was massive beyond anything the galaxy had seen before. More intercepted transmissions began coming in. The Korthani decoded fragments of human military communications. Fleet Admiral Chun, 3rd Expeditionary Force. Responding to Shepard Protocol activation. All ships report ready for jump to Delta 7 coordinates. Rules of engagement. Locate and neutralize hostile forces responsible for Delta 7 casualties. Priority. Secure any survivors and evidence of what happened to our people. Each message made the situation clearer and more frightening. The humans were not sending a small force to investigate. They were sending what appeared to be their main battle fleet. Agent Silthara worked frantically to decode more details about the approaching human ships. What she found made her blood run cold. "Sir," she called to Agent Vexton, "I have ship classifications from the human transmissions. They mention destroyers, cruisers, battleships, and something called Dreadnought-class vessels. How many ships are we talking about?" The ambassador asked from her communication link. "Over 300, according to these intercepts," Silthara replied quietly. "And some of these ships are very large. The gravitational signatures suggest vessels over a kilometer in length." Ambassador Kixthala tried one more time to contact Prince Zethkar. This time, she did not ask politely. She demanded that he listen to the intelligence they had gathered. "The humans are coming with a massive fleet," she warned. 300 ships, including vessels larger than anything we have ever seen. They believe you attacked their scientists, not their soldiers. This is going to be much worse than you think." But Prince Zethkar refused to believe her. "Impossible," he said. "No species has fleets that large. You are trying to scare me with false information. The humans are primitives with basic technology. Even if they send 100 ships, my fleet will destroy them." The prince ended the communication again, leaving the Korthani with no way to warn him about what was coming. On her listening post, Agent Silthara continued to track the approaching human fleet. The ships were moving faster than should have been possible. Their technology was clearly much more advanced than anyone had realized. How long before they reached Volthran space? Ambassador Kixthala asked. "Based on their current speed and trajectory," Silthara calculated quickly. "Approximately 18 hours. 18 hours before Prince Zethkar learned the truth about what he had done. 18 hours before he discovered that attacking human scientists was the biggest mistake of his life. The ambassador made one final decision. She ordered all Korthani ships to withdraw from the area around Volthran space. Whatever was about to happen, she did not want her people to be caught in the middle of it in space. The human fleet continued its approach, moving like a force of nature toward its destination. Soon, Prince Zethkar would understand the difference between fighting 47 scientists and fighting the military might of an entire human civilization. The countdown to disaster had begun. Prince Zethkar stood on the bridge of his flagship, feeling confident about the approaching battle. His fleet of 12 ships waited in formation around the planet where he had defeated the humans 3 weeks ago. 800 of his best warriors were ready to fight again. "Sir," his sensor officer called out, "I am detecting something at the edge of the system." The prince walked over to look at the sensor display. "What do you see?" "Space distortions," the officer replied, sounding confused. "Something very large is about to come out of faster than light travel." Prince Zethkar smiled. So the humans finally decided to respond. "How many ships?" The sensor officer checked his instruments again. "Sir, the readings are unusual. The distortions are much larger than anything in our database." Suddenly, space itself seemed to tear open. Bright flashes of light filled the darkness as ships began to appear. But these were not the small, simple vessels the prince expected to see. The first ship that came into view was enormous. It was over a kilometer long, covered in armor plating that gleamed like metal in the starlight. Strange weapon systems lined its hull, and it moved with smooth precision that seemed impossible for something so large. "By the ancestors," whispered his tactical officer. "What is that thing?" More ships appeared. Smaller vessels that were still twice the size of Velthran cruisers. Medium ships that bristled with weapons. And behind them, more of the giant vessels like the first one. The prince watched in growing shock as ship after ship materialized in his sensor range. 10 ships, 20, 50, 100. The numbers kept climbing until his sensors could barely track them all. "How many?" he asked quietly. "Sir," the sensor officer's voice shook as he spoke. "I count 307 vessels, ranging from destroyer class to whatever those giant ships are." Prince Zethkar felt his confidence drain away like water from a broken bowl. His 12 ships faced over 300 enemy vessels. This was not a battle. This was extinction. The largest human ship sent a communication signal. The prince's communication officer looked at him with fear in his eyes. "Answer it," the prince ordered, trying to keep his voice steady. The main screen activated, showing the bridge of the human vessel. A small figure sat in the captain's chair. At first, Prince Zethkar thought it was a child, but then he realized this was how adult humans looked. Much smaller than Velthrans, with smooth skin and only 2 arms. The human wore a dark blue uniform with strange symbols on it. Her hair was black and cut short. Her eyes were brown and looked directly at him without fear. "I am Fleet Admiral Sarah Chun of the Terran Defense Command, 3rd Expeditionary Fleet," she said in perfect Velthran language. "You have engaged Terran personnel without provocation. Surrender immediately or face the consequences." Prince Zethkar straightened to his full height, trying to look intimidating. "I am Prince Zethkar of the Velthran Empire. Your people entered our space without permission. They paid the price for their crime." Admiral Chun's expression did not change. "Our Recon team was conducting peaceful scientific research. They pose no threat to your empire. You murdered 47 innocent people. They were soldiers defending a military base," the prince argued. "They were scientists," Admiral Chun replied coldly. "Dr. Martinez was a geologist studying rock formations. Dr. Thompson was an anthropologist hoping to learn about new cultures. Sergeant Rodriguez was there to protect them from dangerous animals, not to fight wars." The prince felt something cold growing in his stomach, but he pushed the feeling away. "Even if that is true, they were trespassing. I had the right to defend my territory." "You had the right to communicate with them," Admiral Chun said. "You had the right to ask them to leave. You did not have the right to kill them." Prince Zethkar looked around his bridge at his officers. They all looked nervous and uncertain. He needed to show strength, even though he was facing impossible odds. "Human Admiral," he said with as much authority as he could manage. "You may have more ships than we expected, but your technology is primitive. Our plasma weapons will tear through your hulls like paper." Admiral Chun leaned back in her chair. "Would you like to test that theory?" The prince's pride had already cost him too much to back down now. "All ships, attack formation," he ordered. "Show these humans the true power of the Velthran Empire." His fleet moved forward, spreading into attack positions. 12 ships against over 300. The prince knew it was hopeless, but he could not surrender without fighting. His honor and his position as heir to the empire depended on it. "Fire all weapons," he commanded. Bright beams of plasma energy shot from his ships toward the human fleet. The weapons that had easily destroyed human buildings and killed human scientists now struck the hull of Admiral Chun's flagship. The plasma beams hit the human ship and simply disappeared. The enemy vessel's shields absorbed the energy without even flickering. "Impossible," breathed his weapons officer. the human fleet began to move. It did not charge forward like most species would. Instead, the ships spread out in a complex pattern, surrounding the Velthran vessels from multiple directions. Every movement was coordinated perfectly, as if all 300 ships shared the same mind. "Return fire," Admiral Chun ordered calmly. The human weapons were unlike anything Prince Zethkar had ever seen. Instead of simple energy beams, they fired focused streams of particles that cut through Velthran shields like they were not there. The first volley destroyed 2 of his ships instantly. "Evasive maneuvers," the prince shouted. "All ships scatter and attack independently." His remaining ships tried to break formation and attack from different angles. But the humans adapted to every strategy instantly. When Velthran ships tried to flank them, human vessels were already there waiting. When they attempted surprise attacks, the humans seemed to know exactly where they were going. The battle lasted 6 hours, but it was never really a contest. One by one, Velthran ships were disabled or destroyed. The humans did not fight like barbarians. They fought like artists, using precise movements and perfect timing to take apart his fleet piece by piece. Prince Zethkar watched, helplessly, as his proud navy was reduced to debris. His flagship was the last ship remaining, and it was badly damaged. Smoke filled the bridge, and several of his officers were injured. "Sir," his tactical officer called out, "we have lost all weapons and most of our shields. The humans are targeting our engines." A new impact shook the ship. The prince looked at his screens and saw that human boarding pods had attached to his hull. Small ships that looked like metal insects had landed on his vessel and were cutting their way inside. "They are boarding us," his security chief reported. "Our soldiers are trying to stop them, but their weapons are too advanced. The boarding teams are cutting through our defenses like they were made of soft metal." Within minutes, the sounds of fighting could be heard in the corridors outside the bridge. The prince drew his ceremonial sword, a blade that had been carried by his family for generations. The bridge doors exploded inward. Smoke and debris filled the air. Through the destruction came figures in black armor that made them look like creatures from nightmares. They moved with mechanical precision, their weapons ready. The lead figure removed its helmet, revealing the face of a human woman. She was young, probably not much older than 20 in Velthran years, but her eyes held the confidence of an experienced warrior. "Prince Zethkar," she said in his language. "I am Lieutenant Commander Maria Santos. You are under arrest for the murder of 47 Terran citizens." The prince looked around his ruined bridge. His proud fleet was gone. His officers were wounded or dead. His empire's honor was destroyed. "How?" he whispered. "How is this possible? You are supposed to be primitives." Lieutenant Commander Santos looked at him with something that might have been pity. "Your mistake was thinking that scientists cannot fight," she said. "Every human learns to defend themselves and their people. The difference between us and you is that we know when fighting is necessary and when it is not." Prince Zethkar dropped his sword. The sound of it hitting the floor seemed to echo through the destroyed bridge like the death knell of his dreams. Outside, the human fleet waited in perfect formation, ready for whatever came next. Prince Zethkar sat in a small room aboard the human flagship UES Retribution. The room was simple but clean, with white walls and basic furniture. Guards stood outside the door, but they had not chained him or put him in a cage. This surprised him. Most species would have treated a captured enemy prince much worse. The door opened and Admiral Sarah Chun walked in. She was even smaller than she had looked on the communication screen. Standing next to the prince, she barely reached his chest. But something about the way she moved made him feel nervous. She sat down across from him at a simple metal table. For a moment, they just looked at each other without speaking. "Your people fought well," Prince Zethkar finally said, trying to find some way to keep his dignity. The scientists in your recon unit died with honor. Admiral Chun's expression did not change. Prince Zethkar, I need you to understand something very important. Recon Unit Delta 7 was not a military formation. The prince frowned. What do you mean? They had weapons. They fought like trained soldiers. I saw them myself during the battle. They had weapons for protection against dangerous animals, Admiral Chun explained patiently. And yes, they knew how to fight. But that does not make them soldiers. She activated a small device on the table. A hologram appeared showing detailed files about each member of the human team. Photos of humans appeared one by one, with information about their jobs and backgrounds. Dr. Sarah Martinez, Admiral Chun began. Age 28. She spent 6 years studying geology at Earth University. Her specialty was analyzing soil samples from different planets to understand how worlds formed. She joined the Recon unit because she wanted to study the rock formations on unexplored planets. The prince stared at the image of a young human woman with long dark hair and a friendly smile. She fought like a warrior, he said quietly. All humans receive basic military training in school, Admiral Chun continued. But Dr. Martinez had never been in combat before your attack. She was a scientist who loved learning about how planets were made. The next image appeared. Dr. Chun Wei, age 31, atmospheric specialist. He designed equipment to analyze the air on new worlds, making sure it was safe for human explorers. He had a wife and 2 young children back on Earth. Prince Zethkar felt something uncomfortable growing in his stomach. These were not the backgrounds of soldiers. Dr. James Thompson, age 26, cultural anthropologist. He studied how different species lived and worked together. His job was to help humans understand alien cultures so we could be better neighbors. The images kept coming. Each one showed a human who had dedicated their life to learning and discovery. Not war. Dr. Lisa Park, botanist. She studied plants and how they grew on different worlds. Dr. Robert Kim, communication specialist. He designed equipment to help different species talk to each other. Admiral Chun paused and looked directly at the prince. These were not soldiers, Prince Zethkar. They were teachers, researchers, and explorers. Their only weapons were knowledge and curiosity. But they had a security detail, the prince argued, though his voice was weaker now. Military personnel to guard them. Yes, Admiral Chun agreed. 12 people. Sergeant Mike Rodriguez and 11 others. Their job was to protect the scientists from dangerous animals and natural hazards, not to fight wars with alien species. She showed him another set of files. Sergeant Rodriguez had 3 children. Corporal Smith was studying to become a teacher when her service ended. Private Johnson wrote poetry in his spare time. The prince looked at the faces of the humans he had killed. They looked so young and innocent. Nothing like the hardened warriors he had imagined fighting. This cannot be true, he whispered. They fought too well. They used tactics that only experienced soldiers would know. Admiral Chun leaned back in her chair. Every human child learns basic combat training in school. It is part of our education system. We learn to shoot, to move tactically, to work as a team. But learning to fight does not make someone a soldier. Why? Prince Zethkar asked. Why do you teach children to fight if you are a peaceful species? Because of what happened to them, Admiral Chun said, simply gesturing to the holograms of the dead scientists. Because sometimes even peaceful people need to defend themselves. The prince felt like his world was falling apart. Everything he thought he knew about the battle was wrong. What was their real mission? Admiral Chun activated another hologram. This one showed the human base before the attack. Instead of military equipment, the prince saw scientific instruments, research laboratories, and communication devices. Their mission was peaceful first contact, she explained. They were supposed to study the planet, analyze its ecosystem, and prepare reports about any intelligent life they found. If they met aliens, their orders were to try to communicate and establish friendly relations. The prince stared at images of geology equipment, atmospheric sensors, and biological research tools. Those were not weapons. No, they were not weapons, Admiral Chun confirmed. Dr. Martinez was using ground-penetrating sensors to study rock layers. Dr. Chun was analyzing atmospheric composition. Dr. Thompson was preparing cultural exchange protocols in case they met intelligent aliens. But why did they fight so hard? The prince asked, genuinely confused. If they were just scientists, why did they not surrender when they saw they could not win? Admiral Chun was quiet for a moment before answering. Because they knew what would happen if they failed. They knew that other humans would come looking for them. They fought to delay you, to give our people time to prepare, and to gather information about your tactics and technology. She showed him recordings from the battle that the prince had never seen before. Human scientists working frantically to transmit data back to Earth, even as Velthran soldiers attacked their positions. Researchers destroying their equipment to prevent it from being captured, not to hide military secrets, but to protect their scientific discoveries. Dr. Martinez spent her last hour transmitting geological data about your planet, Admiral Chun said softly. Even while under attack, she wanted to make sure her research would help future explorers understand your world better. Prince Zethkar put his head in his hands. I thought they were invaders. I thought they were a threat to my people. They were scientists who wanted to learn about the universe, Admiral Chun replied. The only threat they posed was the possibility that they might discover something wonderful. The prince looked up at her. This fleet, this massive response. This was all because I killed scientists? This fleet exists because you killed humans, Admiral Chun corrected him. It does not matter if they were scientists, artists, farmers, or children. When someone attacks human beings, we respond. But surely you understand, the prince said desperately. I thought they were soldiers. I thought they were planning to attack my people. If I had known they were peaceful, would you have tried to communicate with them first? Admiral Chun asked. Would you have asked them what they were doing before attacking? Prince Zethkar opened his mouth to answer, then closed it again. He realized that even if he had known they were scientists, his pride and prejudice might have led him to attack anyway. Aliens in Velthran space without permission were enemies, no matter what their intentions. How many ships does humanity have? He asked quietly. Admiral Chun considered her answer carefully. This fleet represents less than 3% of current Terran Defense Command capabilities. The prince felt his blood turn cold. 3%? We are not a warlike species, Prince Zethkar. Most of our ships are used for exploration, trade, and peaceful missions. But when our people are threatened, we can bring overwhelming force to bear. The prince thought about his empire's entire navy. Maybe 200 ships total, including cargo vessels and patrol boats. The humans had brought over 300 ships just to deal with one incident. And this was only 3% of their total force. What happens now? He asked. Now you go on trial for murder, Admiral Chun said simply. 47 humans are dead because of your actions. Human law requires that you face justice for what you did. And my empire? Your empire will learn to coexist peacefully with humanity, or it will face the consequences. The choice is yours to make. Admiral Chun stood up to leave. Before she reached the door, Prince Zethkar called out to her. Admiral, may I ask you something? She turned back to look at him. What? How old are you? 34, she replied. And you command this entire fleet? I do. The prince thought about this. In Velthran culture, someone that young would barely be trusted to command a single ship. Yet this human woman controlled a force that could destroy his entire civilization. How is that possible? Admiral Chen smiled for the first time since he had met her. Because I learned to fight when I was 5 years old, and I learned to think when I was born. That is what humans do. We prepare our children for a universe that can be both beautiful and dangerous. As she left the room, Prince Zethkar finally understood the terrible truth about what he had done. He had not just killed 47 humans. He had destroyed 47 irreplaceable minds, 47 unique individuals who had spent their lives trying to make the universe a better place. And humanity would never forget that. The Galactic Council emergency meeting was called within hours of the Veilthran fleet's destruction. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered in their great hall, all talking nervously about what had happened. News of the battle had spread quickly across the galaxy, carried by traders and diplomats who had witnessed the human fleet's devastating display of power. Ambassador Kixthala coiled nervously in her seat as she watched the chaos around her. Council leader Torthax struggled to bring order to the meeting, but everyone was talking at once. Fear filled the room like a thick cloud. Order! Order! Torthax shouted with his booming voice. We must discuss this situation calmly. The talking gradually stopped as the representatives took their seats. Ambassador Kixthala noticed that several species had sent larger delegations than usual. Everyone wanted to understand what humanity was and what threat they might pose. We are here because of the incident involving Prince Zethkar and the human species, Torthax announced. As you all know, the Veilthran attack fleet has been completely destroyed. We have received a communication from the humans requesting permission to address this council. Worried whispers spread through the hall. No one knew what to expect from these mysterious humans who could destroy an entire fleet so easily. I recommend we hear what they have to say. Ambassador Kixthala spoke up. My people have been monitoring human communications. I believe we need to understand their intentions. The council voted to accept the human communication request. Within minutes, the great holographic display activated, showing the bridge of a massive human ship. Admiral Sarah Chun appeared before them, looking calm and professional. Honored members of the Galactic Council, she began, speaking in perfect galactic standard language. I am Admiral Sarah Chun of the Terran Defense Command. I come before you today to clarify recent events and establish humanity's position regarding galactic relations. The hall was completely silent. Every representative stared at the small human figure on the screen. She looked so fragile compared to the massive aliens around her. Yet she commanded their complete attention. 3 weeks ago, Admiral Chung continued, Prince Zethkar of the Veilthran Empire attacked and killed 47 human citizens who were conducting peaceful scientific research. This unprovoked act of aggression required an appropriate response. The display changed to show footage of the human research base before the attack. The representatives could see clearly that it was a temporary scientific facility, not a military installation. Simple buildings, research equipment, and communication arrays filled the screen. Our people were xenogeologists, atmospheric scientists, cultural anthropologists, and botanists, Admiral Chun explained. Their mission was to study an uninhabited planet and prepare peaceful first contact protocols. They were accompanied by a small security detail whose job was to protect them from dangerous wildlife. More images appeared, showing the human scientists at work. They could be seen taking soil samples, studying plant life, and setting up communication equipment. Nothing in the footage suggested any military threat. Prince Zethkar chose to attack without attempting communication, Admiral Chun said, her voice growing colder. He chose violence over diplomacy. As a result, 47 innocent people died. The display showed the aftermath of the battle. Bodies of humans scattered around their destroyed research station. The peaceful scientists had been gunned down while trying to protect their work and their colleagues. Ambassador Kixthala felt sick as she watched the footage. These were not warriors who had died in honorable combat. They were researchers who had been murdered while pursuing knowledge. The response to this attack was swift and decisive, Admiral Chun continued. The 3rd Expeditionary Fleet was dispatched to locate and neutralize the hostile forces responsible for these deaths. New footage appeared, showing the human fleet arriving at the battle site. The representatives gasped as they saw the true size of the human armada. Ship after ship emerged from faster-than-light travel, forming a formation that stretched across space like a metal constellation. 307 vessels participated in the response mission, Admiral Chun stated. The engagement lasted 6 hours. The Valthran attack fleet was completely neutralized with minimal human casualties. The battle footage was devastating to watch. The human ships moved with perfect coordination, their weapons cutting through Valthran defenses like they were made of paper. The Prince's proud fleet was systematically destroyed, ship by ship. With clinical efficiency, Prince Deathkar is now in human custody and will face trial for murder under Terran law, Admiral Chun announced. He will be given a fair trial and the opportunity to defend his actions. Council Leader Torthax leaned forward in his massive chair. Admiral Chun, the scale of your response seems excessive. Was such overwhelming force necessary? Admiral Chun's expression did not change. Honored Council Leader, any act of aggression against human personnel, military or civilian, will be met with overwhelming force. This is not negotiable. She gestured, and the display showed more human ships. What you witnessed today represents less than 3% of current Terran Defense Command capabilities. We maintain this force not for conquest or expansion, but to protect our people and our interests. Shocked whispers filled the hall. If this massive fleet was only 3% of human military power, then humanity commanded forces beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. We seek peaceful relations with all species, Admiral Chun continued. Humanity wishes to trade, to share knowledge, and to work together for the benefit of all sentient life. We offer friendship and cooperation to those who approach us in good faith. The display changed again, showing images of human worlds. Beautiful cities, advanced technology, and billions of humans living and working in peace. These were clearly not barbarians or warmongers, but a highly advanced civilization. However, Admiral Chun said, and her tone made every representative in the hall pay closer attention. Let this serve as clear notice to all species. Any act of violence against human citizens will be met with immediate and overwhelming retaliation. We will not tolerate attacks on our people, regardless of the justification offered. Ambassador Kixthala decided to ask the question that everyone was thinking. Admiral Chun, you say you seek peace, but your military response suggests otherwise. How can we trust a species with such destructive power? Admiral Chun looked directly at her through the holographic display. Ambassador, you can trust us because we could have destroyed the entire Valthran Empire, but we chose to capture one prince instead. We could have bombarded their worlds from orbit, but we limited our response to the forces directly responsible for attacking our people. This was a sobering thought. The human fleet could have easily continued to Valthran space and destroyed their homeworld. Instead, they had captured the guilty party and stopped. Our strength comes from the fact that every human citizen is prepared to defend themselves and their people, Admiral Chun explained. We do not have a warrior class separate from our civilians. Every teacher, every farmer, every artist learns to fight because we believe that free people must be capable of protecting their freedom. She paused to let this sink in. The scientists that Prince Deathkar killed were not helpless victims. They fought with skill and courage because every human learns these skills as children. But they chose to be scientists instead of soldiers because they believed knowledge was more important than war. The display showed images of human schools where children were learning both academic subjects and basic military skills. Young humans studied mathematics and literature alongside marksmanship and tactical movement. It was clear that education and military training were considered equally important. We teach our children to fight so they can choose peace, Admiral Chun said simply. We prepare for war so we can build a better galaxy. Council leader Torthax cleared his throat nervously. Admiral, what are humanity's intentions regarding galactic politics? Do you seek membership in this council? We seek cooperation and mutual understanding, Admiral Chun replied. We would be honored to participate in galactic governance, but only as equals working toward common goals. We will not submit to the authority of others, nor do we wish to dominate other species. She gestured again, and the display showed a star map with human territory clearly marked. These are our current borders. We have no intention of expanding through conquest. However, we reserve the right to defend ourselves and to respond to threats against our people. The message was clear. Humanity was offering friendship and cooperation, but they would not be pushed around or threatened. I will leave you with this final thought, Admiral Chun said as the communication began to end. Prince Zethkar made the mistake of thinking that peaceful people are weak people. He learned too late that the strongest civilizations are those that choose diplomacy over violence, but are fully prepared to fight when diplomacy fails. The holographic display shut off, leaving the council hall in complete silence. For several minutes, no one spoke as they processed what they had heard. Finally, Ambassador Kixthala broke the silence. I believe we need to establish formal diplomatic relations with humanity immediately. We cannot afford to have them as enemies.